The hype is real, as all of a sudden we get a revealing interview with the project lead of the Enfusion engine. And even with new screenshots, and let me tell you, they look fantastic. The interview was done by 80 Level, an industry-leading platform for game developers. I don't want to butcher the name of the project lead nor the interviewer, so I'll leave them on the screen right now. And I am Critical. If you haven't already, shoot that subscribe button, because I have a roadmap of videos that you don't want to miss. And last time I checked, 99% of you who watch this aren't subscribed. Let's go! I'm not going to dive too deep into the technical stuff, nor the facts we already know, because there's a lot of it. But I will mention the most important features both for players and content creators. I'll leave the interview article in the description if you want to read the whole thing. We'll begin with the question of how did the story of Enfusion begin? And the answer is very interesting, as he says that the Enfusion engine dates back as far as 2014. But the development actually began a few years later, and they didn't have any specific goal. But their first project was actually porting Tanoa from ARMA 3 onto Enfusion, and believe it or not, run it on a PlayStation 4. He said that the reason for Tanoa was due to the size and number of entities, and seemed to be a plausible test for the engine. Now, I'll have to say that this is very promising, as the PS4 isn't very powerful compared to the computers required to run ARMA 3 smoothly, not to mention the dense jungles of Tanoa. Later he said in the question about the engine's architecture that the Enfusion should be able to run large and dynamic multiplayer, even on mid-tier hardware, which the PS4 is. When it comes to the editor, they call it the workbench, in which everything you need for game development exists. And this could also mean that all you need for modding and mission making is there. He mentioned the workbench to be seen as an integrated development environment, and had a motto as the following: no more text editors, everything must be possible in the workbench. As a mission designer myself, I know for a fact that there are a lot of separate text documents you have to work with here and there, and it would make it quite a lot easier if all that was within the editor. Now to what they call believable environments. He mentioned a lot about world simulations such as clouds, weather and day-night cycles, which isn't anything new, but it sounds very much like they're overhauling everything to a whole new level. My favorite part though is that he said the forests are going to be very dense, with roughly 1 million tree entities per terrain. He mentioned good-looking grass clutter with the ability to see far, and they made sure that the grass blends smoothly into the terrain. I certainly hope with this we could see the end of the coverless environment in the distance. Other environmental improvements seem to be wet materials when raining and dry material with the sun in the sky. He also mentioned reflections, which we certainly can see in one of the screenshots. Different lighting in indoors and outdoors was also mentioned. But there's something I wanted even more to see in ARMA terrains, which are rivers and proper lakes, and the other audio-visual elements that give the feeling of an immersive world. Even better is that he said that they have a pile of features yet to be included, but they want to include. Interesting was what he said about how they can't fit all the world data into memory, and instead they would stream it. Textures, audio, meshes for example. And amazing is that everything that could be only simulated on the GPU would be. This is amazing because ARMA has always been unbalanced with CPU overload, while not using the GPU barely at all. Also, the rendering backbone is written in DirectX 12, which is great for optimization. Regarding the new lighting, there's also bad news for those who would like to port ARMA 3 assets, as it was said that RV material doesn't look very good nor consistent. But they have documentation on how to transform them for the new lighting. Speaking of lighting, they seem to be very determined to have the world synchronized in multiplayer environments, with the example of clouds and how they affect the sunlight hitting the ground. This could mean that we might get dynamic cloud shadows. In ARMA 3, clouds don't affect the light on the ground, other than the persistent ambient light level encompassing the entire terrain, depending on how cloudy it is. Something that will impact content creators is the ability to write code and scripts that will work in multiplayer as well as single player scenarios. I love this, as it has always been a pain in the butt when scripting for multiplayer has been very different from single player. I can say from my own experience. Now, much like on the Enfusion website, he mentioned the plan to release a game demo that would demonstrate the engine's abilities. And as I mentioned in my last video, there's a possibility that the demo won't be an entire remaster of Operation Flashpoint Cold War Crisis, aka ARMA Cold War Assault, and more of a tribute to the first game in the ARMA series. If you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, I'll leave the links to my previous videos in the description below. But he also said the following, which makes me hopeful. I also assume that we'll be supporting it throughout the year. I don't mean just fixing any issues people will find. Which in my opinion is a translation of that they'll be adding more content into ARMA Reforger throughout the year. Maybe on launch it will simply be a multiplayer demo, and maybe with an update they will add co-op, and perhaps later even the campaigns from Operation Flashpoint. Who knows? Because we do know that Bohemia has a history of updating their games for years and years. Nevertheless, we should not keep our hopes up too high. I'm already happy with what I see from the screenshots. Lastly, he said that we shouldn't expect anything groundbreaking this year, and they let us know if they do implement something. I would say that ARMA is already groundbreaking, and all we want in the end is just an improved ARMA. Now, I have something special for you that have been shared by another YouTuber called Ceb Cin. Here are some screenshots from a game developers conference, and shout out to Ceb for sharing this. Well, that's all for this update regarding ARMA Reforger and Enfusion. I have a video coming next week, so if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, because that's what inspires me to make more. Thank you for watching. This is Critical, out.